This is the Politics and Citizenship Review, Part 3. Okay, John Marshall's court. Every decision that the Marshall court made, what did it do? Strengthen or weaken the federal government? Always strengthen the federal government. Strengthen or weaken the power of the Supreme Court? Always strengthen. So everything he did was about strengthening the federal government, strengthening the Supreme Court. And of course, the key decision that's handed down by him is Marbury versus Madison. And what did that establish? Judicial review, that it's the right of the Supreme Court to declare laws made by Congress constitutional or unconstitutional. McCulloch versus Maryland upheld the right of Congress to make a national bank. Gibbons versus Ogden upheld the right of the federal government to regulate interstate trade. Those are just a few other cases. Okay. If you did a note card on it, you should probably know the case. Okay.
Gibson versus
Ogden. Gibson versus Ogden. Gibbons versus Ogden. Sorry, not Gibson. Okay, on to Thomas Jefferson then, who's president from 1800 to 1808. He is really kind of the figurehead of the Democratic Republicans. And what are some of the key beliefs of the Democratic Republicans? Key beliefs of Democratic Republicans. Strict interpretation of the Constitution. If it's not in there, they don't think you have the right to do that. And of course, that was a problem for Jefferson when he went to make the Louisiana Purchase, because nowhere in there does it say the president have the power to buy foreign lands, but he treated it as a treaty. Okay. Yeah.
They favored France.
Very good. They favored France over Britain. They were more for states' rights versus a stronger federal government. Evidence of that would be the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, which were made in response to the Alien and Sedition Acts. And remember, those Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, that's where Jefferson laid out the right of nullification that's going to be used down the road. They tended to favor like the poor, the farmers, where the Federalists were more the merchants, the bankers, the wealthy. All right, moving on to Jacksonian America. Jackson is often kind of seen as like the greatest president who ever lived because democracy expanded so much while he was president, okay? Now, some of that's due to him, and some of it's just that he happened to be president while other things were going on. So some of the things that expanded democracy. All right, we start to have caucuses. Instead of caucuses, like closed-door meetings to decide who should be a nominee for president from a particular party, parties started to have nominating conventions, so that more people were involved in the process of picking a party's candidate for president or any other office. The beginning of popular campaigning, which we can attribute much of that to Jackson. It became more of a form of entertainment with parades and picnics. And that got more of the common people involved. Universal white male suffrage. Most states by the early 1820s had changed their voting laws so that all white males could vote. You did not have to own property. But again, that's not something the federal government did. That's something that happened at the state level. And the spoils system. An idea introduced by Jackson where he argued that appointing people who supported you to office would get more common people involved in government. The spoils system means to appoint people who supported you to public office. And he thought that got more of the common people involved. in the end, it ends up being a very corrupt practice that puts in power people who are uneducated and don't know what they're doing. Now, what are some ways that Jackson strengthened the presidency?
By strengthening like
Made the president more powerful.
he killed the bank.
Okay, very good. Yeah, he got rid of the National Bank, which many saw as unconstitutional because that really had been something Congress had the power to control, and he put it all into pet banks.
He went against the Supreme Court and had them enter into the law.
Very good. He went against the Supreme Court with the Cherokee removal. He also vetoed more bills than any of the previous presidents combined. So he made use of that veto power. But he also saved the Union in the nullification crisis and showed that he was going to use force to preserve the Union if necessary. All right, now let's move on to the Civil War, where we also see expansion of presidential power. How did Lincoln expand the power of the presidency? What did he do at the start of the war that he did without approval from Congress? Very good, yeah, and you can actually put that under civil liberty violations. He suspended habeas corpus, which is the right not to be detained without being charged and tried. So he could put anybody in jail, and that applied especially the border states where he was trying to keep those states in the Union. It also applied during the New York City draft riots in 1863.
How do you spell it?
Habeas corpus, H-A-B-E-A-S, space, C-O-R-P-U-S.
Is it by trial by jury or just a trial?
Just that you're not even given a trial. Like, you could just sit in jail for like a year without ever being charged with something. And typically, the police only have 24, 48 hours to hold you before they have to charge you with a crime. Okay? Again, the New York City draft riots, those happened. Why? Why did those happen in 1863? Let's put this under civil liberties. Yeah.
A lot of times, a lot of the new draftees were immigrants, mainly the Irish.
Okay, yeah. The draftees tend to be poor because what could you do if you were rich? Pay $200 for somebody to serve in your place. So you're going to see the poor and a lot of immigrants rioting against African Americans, because that's the reason we're fighting the war, and the wealthy in New York City. All right, now, besides suspending habeas corpus, what else did he do without the approval of Congress at the start of the Civil War? Okay, he organized an army of 75,000 without ever getting permission. And he authorized all the spending for the war without getting that appropriated through the House of Representatives. Now, he justified it all by saying these were extreme times. We just had all these states secede from the Union. He needed to do it without the permission of Congress. The spending of money on the war and the troops. All right, now into the Gilded Age. And the Gilded Age is the period right after Reconstruction. So we say from 1877 through about 1896. And this was a time of the forgotten presidents. Okay? Nothing was really getting accomplished politically at all. There was a stalemate. Why is there a political stalemate during the Gilded Age? Which is also the Industrial Age. Yeah.
Wasn't there no political parties?
No, there were political parties. The problem is the two parties really didn't disagree on many issues. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, but they were both pretty laissez-faire towards business, and they really didn't disagree on too many things. the parties were much more concerned about what? Rather than dealing with problems, what were their main concerns during this time period?
Getting into office.
Yeah, getting into office and maintaining power. So they were much more worried about party patronage. So getting people to stay loyal to the party and getting their candidate elected than they were about real issues. So this is the era where political machines develop as well.